This is Catherine, sitting pensively, remembering her moments with her son, who we learn died at the age of 16 in a car accident. Since then, Catherine has been grieving and depressed. She calls her husband Dale to remind him about their scheduled dinner invitation. When the time comes, Catherine is sitting with her friend Connie, who is telling her about her husband Jerry's problems at work, but Catherine is absent-minded and not focused on the conversation. When Jerry arrives, he puts a piece of meat on Catherine's plate, but she refuses to eat it. She looks at him sharply and says, "If you cared about me, you'd know I don't like meat and I don't eat it." Connie tries to calm the situation by talking about the harms of eating meat, affirming that Catherine is right and rarely eats it anyway. At night, when they return home, Catherine is drunk and keeps talking about her son Nick while crying. Dale tries to calm her down and helps her sleep to get some rest. Next, we see a young man named Jordi being released from prison after serving his sentence. His father, Carl, picks him up and tells him that his wife Lisa is waiting for them. Jordi gets very upset and clearly dislikes Lisa and feels uncomfortable around her. The next morning, Jordi wakes up to find that Lisa has made breakfast and is waiting with Carl. Carl speaks to Jordi sternly, telling him he has just 1 week to find a job and start working, because he is reckless and a troublemaker, and he must begin taking responsibility for himself. Carl then leaves for work, and we learn he is a doctor and psychotherapist. Lisa tries to talk kindly to Jordi and be friendly so that he might like her, but he insists that she is just his father's wife and will never be his mother. Meanwhile, Catherine wakes up to find Dale upset with her because he is handling their son Brady alone. He asks her to take him to school since he is busy. She quickly gets dressed and prepares Brady so he won't be late. After that, Catherine goes to the location where her son Nick died. When she returns home, she enters his room, sits on his bed, and breaks down crying while holding and smelling his clothes. At that moment, Brady walks in and asks if he can go to his friend's house, but Catherine refuses since the friend's parents aren't home. Later, we see Carl at his clinic, sitting with a man named Walter, who tells him about his brother Dennis's psychological state after an accident and how guilty he feels because he was drunk while driving. Carl asks why his brother was with him at the time if he was drunk. Walter explains that his brother is partially autistic and he was picking him up from a session. On the way back, they hit a car with a child named Nick inside, who died. Since then, Walter hasn't been able to cope with the idea that he was responsible for the death of a small child. Afterward, Walter returns home and talks to his wife, who seems more interested in the salad she is preparing than in his words. He gets angry and yells at her. Suddenly, she explodes in frustration and throws everything she was preparing onto the floor. Later, she tries to make peace, but he doesn't care and tells her he is not in a good mood because of work and lectures. She asks why he stopped writing like he used to, especially since he used to be more passionate about writing than teaching. But Walter seems very interested in the weather presenter Sherry, one of his former students, and there appears to be some mutual attraction between them. Shortly after, Walter finds his wife carrying a suitcase and leaving the house. He tries to stop her and tells her he needs her, but she refuses, saying she has endured too much and can no longer stay with him. She tells him she will be staying with her sister. Meanwhile, Jordi goes to a pizza restaurant to apply for a job. When the manager learns he just got out of prison for rioting, he asks if Jordi stole anything. Jordi admits he stole a car and regrets what he did. The manager agrees to hire him. Later, he bumps into his old schoolmate Melissa, who is surprised to see him, not knowing he was released. He tells her he got out just the day before and was looking for work. Melissa tries to convince him to come to a party that evening and suggests he visit Catherine, Nick's mother. But Jordi gets nervous and says he is the last person Catherine would want to see. That night, Catherine is heading to the supermarket and unexpectedly sees Jordi. She gets very anxious and hides from him until he leaves. Then, we see Dennis, Walter's brother, calling Walter to consult him before doing anything. Walter, sounding frustrated, tells him, "Do whatever you want," and hangs up. Feeling guilty afterward, he calls Dennis back and continues the conversation. The next morning, Lisa walks in on Jordi to check if he has any laundry to be done. He yells at her to stop acting like she is his mother and reminds her that she never will be. Later, Jordi sees Lisa coming out of the bathroom and is attracted to her. They end up having an intimate encounter. Afterward, they talk, and Lisa tells Jordi that her husband has grown old and no longer pays attention to her, and that she has felt very lonely, until he came out of prison. Later, while Catherine is having a meal with Dale and Brady, she tries to encourage Brady to play basketball like his brother Nick, who was a pro. Brady gets annoyed, Brady then goes to basketball practice. Suddenly, Dale feels pain and asks him to bring something to disinfect a wound. Catherine is shocked when she sees that Brady has Nick's basketball with him. At that moment, Brady loses his temper and argues with her, saying that Nick is gone and no longer needs the ball, and that she needs to wake up and face reality. At that time, Walter is at the university and meets Sherry. He takes her with him to visit Dennis. But when Dennis opens the door and sees Sherry, he gets extremely frightened and refuses to let her in, slamming the door in her face because he is afraid of unfamiliar people. Walter tries to calm him down and reminds him that he has seen Sherry before. He opens the door again, apologizes to Sherry, and asks her to wait in the car. He goes back to Dennis and tries to convince him to get dressed and come out. After several attempts, Dennis agrees, gets dressed, and prepares to leave. But as soon as he opens the door, fear overwhelms him again and he refuses to go out. Walter then goes down to Sherry, who is upset for being left alone all that time. He apologizes and tells her he thought Dennis would recognize her and not be afraid, since he watches the weather reports she presents on TV. He then tells her about Dennis's condition and that he hasn't left the house since the accident 2 years ago. Sherry asks Walter to take her home because she is feeling anxious and no longer in the mood to go out. The next morning, Walter goes to Sherry at the university and brings her a flower, but she responds coldly and tells him she needs a break from their relationship. Meanwhile, Melissa visits Jordi at the pizza restaurant where he works and encourages him to keep working because he looks happy and at ease. She tells him she waited for him at the party. Melissa then gives Jordi a ride home, and he asks her to come inside and sit with him for a while. They sit together in Jordi's room and start talking about Nick. We learn that Melissa had a crush on Nick and wished she could have been with him. At that moment, Lisa walks in and becomes visibly upset and angry at the sight of Melissa. Melissa introduces herself and says she was in high school with Jordi. Lisa storms out, clearly jealous. Jordi then asks Melissa to leave. We see Catherine still struggling with severe depression and feelings of guilt for how she has treated Brady. The next day, Sylvie visits Dennis at home. We learn she is a girl Dennis had been communicating with for a while through letters. She wants to see him in person, to help him, and she tries to convince him to go out with her, promising that he'll feel happy and at ease. Later, Walter goes to visit Sherry and finds her with her boyfriend, who becomes irritated by Walter's presence and attacks him. Sherry gets angry with her boyfriend and kicks him out of the house. She then tends to Walter's injuries. Afterward, they sit together, laugh, and enjoy each other's company. At the same time, Jordi is out with Melissa. When she mentions Lisa, he tells her not to talk about her and says he loves her and just wants to have a fun time away from all the problems. He then returns home to change clothes, but Lisa sees him and gets into a fight with him for being with Melissa. She tries to talk to him and win him back, but Jordi walks away and leaves. That night, Jordi decides to call Catherine and ask to meet. The next morning, he meets her and apologizes for disappearing all this time without contacting her, especially since he was Nick's best friend. He tells her he had nothing to do with the accident and that it was the other car that suddenly swerved and crashed into them. Jordi breaks down in tears and tells Catherine that Nick was better than him in every way and deserved to live more than he did. Catherine tries to calm him down and tells him he is a good person too. She tells him she regrets not spending enough time with Nick and that she is happy to finally talk to someone who understands and listens to her. After that, Catherine returns home in a rage. She smashes everything in the kitchen, then gathers all of Nick's belongings from his room and burns them, even the necklace she had kept. She throws it into the fire. At that moment, Dale returns home. When he tries to put out the fire, Catherine stops him, but he insists because he doesn't want his son's things to burn. Catherine then sits with Brady and apologizes for how she treated him. She explains that the reason she burned Nick's things is because she can't move on while living in the same house with all those memories. She hugs him and asks for his forgiveness. She tells him they will visit his aunt's house for a while to get a change of scenery and help them heal. When Dale sees Catherine packing her suitcase, he realizes she wants to leave the house but doesn't want to say it in front of Brady. Catherine tells him she still can't forgive him because he didn't cry when Nick died, not a single tear, and then went on living like nothing happened. Afterward, we see Dennis calling his brother Walter to tell him he decided to go out with Sylvie, but Walter doesn't show much interest. Dennis gets nervous from the street noise, then goes into the bathroom to shave, but ends up hurting himself. He then gets dressed, pulls himself together, and tries to build the courage to finally leave the house. At that time, Walter decides to go to Catherine's house because he can't live with the guilt anymore over the accident that took Nick's life. But Catherine refuses to talk to him or even listen. When Walter insists, she gets angry and tells him she will never forgive him for what happened. She then attacks him and hits him. Afterward, she gets in the car with Brady and drives away. At the same time, Jordi returns home to find Lisa with a bruised face. He realizes someone hit her. Suddenly, Carl, his father, attacks him and beats him violently, saying he knows what happened between Jordi and Lisa and that he is sure Jordi seduced her. He throws Jordi out of the house. Later, Jordi goes to Melissa, and they decide to live together and start a new life. In the final scene, we see Dennis with Sylvie, happily enjoying his time with her. And with that, the film ends.